So we see here Sutta is trying to establish so he has glorified the Bhagavatam. Now he is trying to glorify the speakers of the speakers of the Bhagavatam. So he initially said it came from Srila Vyasadeva to Sukadev Goswami. Now he is saying that from Sukadev Goswami it came to Maharaj Parikshit. So he calls Parikshit Maharajam. So Parikshit was the emperor. He was the Maharajam is the king of the kings. So he was ruling over the other kings, and he also brings our attention to the dire situation of Maharaj Parikshit. So what is the situation of Maharaj Parikshit? That he's sitting on the bank of the river Ganges awaiting death, and he's fasting without food or drink. So we do one day of Nirjala Ekadashi, and by next day we are wiped out. And then Parikshit Maharaj for 7 days, and even though he was without food and drink, he was also without sleep. So the whole day he would listen to Bhagavatam, the whole night he would have discussions on it. So without food, without drink, without sleep, awaiting his death. So it gives us a glimpse into the exalted nature of Parikshit Maharaj. And in his purport, Srila Prabhupada, very interestingly, he uses the example of Sripad Shankaracharya. So there's a past incident in the life of Sripad Shankaracharya, that once he saw a very old Brahman who was nearing his death, and he saw him read the Vedas. And he was trying to analyze the Sanskrit, the Vyakaran. He was looking at the different words. And Shankaracharya, who basically preached Mayavad, the path of Gyan, his heart actually became very, very filled with a lot of compassion towards the Brahman. And that's when he composed this famous Bhaj Govindam prayers. He said, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam Murmate. Because he says at the end of your life, all this scholarship will not be of any help to you. So Shankaracharya is Lord Shiva, and even though he had come for a particular purpose, which was to promote the systematic study of the Vedas and defeat atheism, but Lord Shiva at his heart is a devotee, and that nature of a devotee came out under these circumstances. So Prabhupada in the purport says that at the critical hour of death, one must recite the name of Govinda. This was Shankaracharya's recommendation. This is the recommendation of all great transcendentalists. Sukadeva Goswami had long ago stated the same truth, that at the end one must remember Narayan. This is the essence of all spiritual activities. In pursuance of this eternal truth, Srimad Bhagavatam was heard by Emperor Parikshit, and it was recited by the able Sukadeva Goswami, and both the speaker and the receiver of the messages of the Bhagavatam were truly delivered by the same situation. So the point Prabhupada makes is that the speaker and the audience, they're both delivered, and in terms of the circumstance, he says that at the critical hour of death, which for us is every critical hour, because Parikshit Maharaj knew that he was going to die in 7 days. At least he had that assurance that he would live for 7 days. But Srila Prabhupada at one point said that we don't have that assurance. So every hour that we have is a critical hour for us. So we should study the Bhagavatam. Next verse, 1343. Krishna sadhamopagate dharma jnanad bisah kalau nasta drishamesha puranarko anudoditaha puranarka adunoditaha. This Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode, accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc. Persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in this age of Kali shall get light from this Puran. So this is the answer to the sixth question that the sages had asked in 1123. So the question that asked was that since Krishna, the absolute truth, the master of all mystic powers, has departed to his own abode, please tell us to whom the religious principles have now gone for shelter. So this verse gives answer, and it uses very, very pleasing metaphors to make this example that where there is Krishna, there is light. So when Krishna left, accompanied by dharma and gyan, so he says dharma gyanad bhi saha. So gyanad bhi, etc. So not only did he go with religion and knowledge, but etc. includes many other things. Etc. includes religious the desire to follow religious principles, purity, Brahmanical conduct, so many things. Dharma Jnana Adibhi Saha, when he went back, then Kalau Nashta Drisham Esha. Then when there is no light, there is darkness. And this is the dense darkness of ignorance, Kalau, in the age of Kali. So what happens? Then Puranarko Adunoditaha. So the Puranarka, so the brilliant Puran, has now arisen. So he's painting a picture using this metaphors. That when Krishna was here, the whole world was inundated with bhakti because of the brilliance of Krishna's presence. Along with him was Dharma Jnana Adibhi. Everything was there with him. When he left, then they all left with him. So this whole world was plunged into darkness. And then what happens? Then a new sun arises. Purnaraku. Then the new sun arises and then it dispels the darkness and it creates the same situation that was there when Krishna was there. So when Krishna was there, the world was illuminated by his presence. Now the Bhagavatam is there and the Bhagavatam is illuminating everybody. So this is the answer to the sixth question of the sages. And Prabhupada in the purport, he expands on this a little bit, and he makes the first point that he makes is that other than religion, there is no other shelter. So he says, except for God, no one can establish the principles of religion. Either he or a suitable person empowered by him can dictate the codes of religion. Real religion means to know God or relation with him and our duties in relation with him, and to know ultimately our destination after leaving his material body. So other than religion, we have no shelter, and religion can only come from Krishna or his bona fide representatives. Then further on in the purport he says, so first he says the only shelter is religion. Second point he makes is that in this age of Kali, religion is lost. So he says that the conditioned souls who are entrapped by the material energy hardly know of all these principles of life. Most of them are like animals engaged in eating, sleeping, fearing, and mating. They are still more blind in the present age of quarrel or Kali Yuga. In the Kali Yuga, the population is just a royal addition of animals. They have nothing to do with spiritual knowledge or godly religious life. So first he says, no shelter other than religion. Second point he makes is, religion is lost in the age of Kali. So what is hope for them? Last part of the purport he says, but there is hope for them. He says the personality of Godhead Shri Krishna appeared before us just a little prior to the beginning of Kali Yuga. And he returned to his eternal home practically at the commencement of Kali Yuga. While he was present, he exhibited everything by his different activities. He spoke the Bhagavad Gita, specifically and eradicated all pretentious principles of religiosity. And prior to his departure from the material world, he empowered Srila Vyasadeva through Narad to compile the messages of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and thus both the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are torch bearers for the blind people of this age. In other words, if men in this age of Kali want to see the real light of life, they must take shelter of these two books only, and the aim of life will be fulfilled. Bhagavad Gita is the primary study of the Bhagavatam, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the summum bonum of life. Lord Shri Krishna personified. We must therefore accept Srimad Bhagavatam as a direct representation of Lord Krishna. One can see Srimad Bhagavatam, can also see Lord Krishna in person. They are identical. So Prabhupada systematically, through the purport, he makes this point that other than the Bhagavatam, there is no other shelter, and other than the religion, there is no other shelter. The religion in the age of Kali is lost, but for those who take shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they have full shelter of the religious principles. So I'll do the last verse, and hopefully I may run a little bit over time. So this is verse. I'm sorry, I didn't put up the last verse. So this is verse 144. Tatta kirtayato vipra viprashir tejasaha am chadyagaman tatra nivistastadanugrahat somvaha shravashyami yathaditam yathamati. O learned Brahmins, when Sukadev Goswami recited Bhagavatam there in the presence of Emperor Parikshit, so this is Sutta Goswami speaking, I heard him with rapt attention, and thus by his mercy I learned the Bhagavatam from the great and powerful sage. Now I shall try to make you hear the very same thing as I learned it from him and as I realized it. So Sutta Goswami, in this verse, he completes the disciplic succession. He talked about how Sukadev Goswami spoke it, and Vyasadeva gave it to Sukadev Goswami, Maharaj Parikshit, and then he got it from him. So he also talks about his qualification of sitting on the Vyasthan in Naimisharanya and speaking the Bhagavatam. He says that I heard him with rapt attention. So he heard it with full attention. But then immediately he says that, and thus by his mercy, I learned the Bhagavatam. So one should not think that just by one's endeavor, one can understand Bhagavatam. The descending mercy of Krishna through the Guru is very important in understanding it. So he is disambiguating the notion of academic scholarship. That the people who are jnanis can read the Bhagavatam with apprehension, but they lack the mercy component. So he puts in both. And sometimes people with only mercy will not hear the Bhagavatam with rapt attention, so he puts in both. He says, I heard it with rapt attention, and thus. So just like when a student is sincere, the teacher's attention towards the student increases. The teacher's mercy to the student increases. So what caused the mercy to come was the fact that the student was attentive. There's a pastime of Ashwathama complaining to Dronacharya that you have taught Arjun much more than you have taught me, and I'm your son. And Dronacharya responded by saying that is true, but I have taught him more because he has been more attentive to what I teach him. And that is the only reason I have taught him more. So Sutta Goswami is making the same point here, that I was a good student, but ultimately it is because of his mercy. Then in the last verse, in the last line of the verse, he says, Yathadidam yathamati. So as I have learned it from him and as I have realized it. So this statement yathamati, one should not confuse it. So there is and I don't know what the origin of it is, but there is a statement that says yato mato tata tatoprat. Yato mat tata tatopat. Right? It says that as one's mind is, one should choose a path accordingly. Yato mat tatopat, which basically says that according to one's own conception, one should choose a path. And Srila Prabhupada was very, very contemptuous about this. So in a room conversation, this is actually 1977, just a few months before Srila Prabhupada, about 9 months before Prabhupada left his body. This is in Mayapur. Prabhupada, he he very strongly condemns his approach. He says, this is rascal. Therefore, we say they are rascal. Path is one. Maam ekam sharanam braj. And they managed this, and they manufactured this. Yato mat tato pat. Mat is one. Food has to be given to the mouth, not to the eyes. So, what we understand when Krishna, when Sutta is saying yatha mat, he's saying as far as my realization permits me. So he says, I heard it, I received the mercy of Sukadev Goswami, and now I'm sitting and standing over here and speaking to you to the extent that my realization permits me. And Srila Prabhupada often makes this point that one must speak according to their level of realization and not beyond that. That is why so when Prabhupada was writing the commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, there was a commentary of Bhagavad Gita already written by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and by Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Similarly, when he was writing the commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, there was a commentary by both Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhakti Vinod Thakur. But then, when somebody asked Prabhupada about this, Prabhupada said, I'm writing this as my realization permits me. And realization is also predicated on time, place, circumstance. So when we read the purpose of Srila Prabhupada, they're more contemporary. We can relate to them because they're spoken by somebody who comes from a time that we can relate to. He's not trying to negate the realizations of his spiritual masters. He is not trying to deprecate them, but he is saying that these are my realizations that I am speaking about. And one last point is that in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, but somehow or other, if someone hears with rapt attention from the right person at the very beginning, one can assuredly see Lord Krishna in the pages of the Bhagavatam. A beautiful purport. He writes that somehow or other, if one hears with rapt attention from the right person, and one can directly see Krishna. So this somehow or the other, in our case, is Srila Prabhupada. That Srila Prabhupada has, out of his mercy, he has made the Bhagavatam available to millions of devotees throughout the world. Even though we may not have the qualification, even though we may not even have that rapt attention that Sutta Goswami has, but if somehow or the other we read the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Srila Prabhupada has very kindly made it available to us, then the potency is still the same. Through that potency, we can access the mercy. So I'll stop here. I know I'm a little over time, but I'll stop and see if there's any questions.
Prabhu, one quick question on this realization thing. How do we know that the knowledge that we have is realized knowledge or just theoretical?
So in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us this understanding between Gyan and Vigyan. So he says knowledge is Gyan, which you academically understand, and Vigyan is realized knowledge that you understand experientially. So case in point is, a common example used in this context is that somebody might tell you that chanting Krishna's name is very potent. So you have that knowledge that Krishna's chanting Krishna's name is potent. That is Gyan. When you actually start chanting and you see the difference that is happening in your consciousness, in your spirituality, in your devotion, then that knowledge becomes Vigyan. That becomes realized knowledge. So in this context, when it is said that you speak according to your realization, so it is also mentioned that when we read the Bhagavatam, when we start following the principles of the Bhagavatam, then we will see the difference in this very lifetime, in this very body. we will start seeing the difference. So, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada makes this point about professional reciters. And he condemns them because he says that they lack the realizations. They may have the knowledge. Most of them don't even have the knowledge. But he says some of them may have the knowledge. They may know the Bhagavatam, they may know the verses, but because they're not practicing devotees, they lack the realization. Therefore, they do not have the right to speak the Bhagavatam. So that is why when we discuss the Bhagavatam, we rely on the realization of the previous acharyas. So Prabhupada's purports are his realizations. So that's why we rely on his realizations to churn the nectar of the Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anything else? Okay, so we will stop over here. Panchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta koti vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.